There it is.
Hi, and welcome back to the Fortify Your Brain Summit. I'm Betsy Schroeder, your host. Today I have as my guest Dr. Benjamin Perkus. Dr. Perkus is a licensed psychologist who has developed a breakthrough process for identifying and releasing negative thoughts, feelings, and memories that hold us back from reaching our dreams. He has a PhD from Duquesne University and has lectured internationally on emotional health and aromatherapy. Welcome, Dr. Perkus.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So to begin with, can you share a little bit more about your background and then how you got started in using essential oils?
Sure. So I've been a licensed psychologist for probably close to 25 years now. And during that time, I was always interested in learning new modalities and bringing them back for my clients and for myself. I was always learning new ways. I wanted to find faster ways to heal trauma, faster ways to bring people out of depression or anxiety or whatever it was. And as I would learn new techniques and bring them in, I was really learning what worked best and what didn't. At the same time, kind of like I lived a dual life because my wife and I had been using essential oils since 2001, just for our own personal wellness. And we would train others in how to use them for immune system or back or neck or belly, that sort of thing. And I knew they were powerful and they would affect our mood instantly. And they could be uplifting or they could be calming, but I didn't know how to use them clinically. And then it was, gosh, probably 10 years ago now, I experimented with using the oils in conjunction with some of the techniques I had learned for trauma treatment. And what I found was when you think about memories in a certain way and set them up to be processed, and then you use the essential oils, they process very quickly. And the memories literally dissolve, the negative thoughts dissolve, the emotional charge goes away. And it was faster than anything I had seen before. And all of my clients loved it. So I kind of had this one technique that I at least knew what to do with traumatic memories. But then I still didn't really know what to do with just all the other stuff people would bring in, the depression, the anxiety, the relationship problems, the fears, those sorts of things. And in 2016, I kind of made this commitment that I was going to write the book that I always knew I had within me to write. I didn't even know what the book was going to be exactly, but I started just jotting down everything I knew about the brain, about emotions, about aromatherapy and the sense of smell, and just playing around with the different processes I'd learned. I ended up putting everything in the format of this 12-step process where we start by setting goals, and then using that negative voice that's in our head, we're led back to these memories of times when we had developed negative thoughts. And then when we use the essential oils, the sense of smell goes in and actually dissolves the negative memory. No, it sounds strange, but it actually dissolves the negative memory. Negative thoughts disappear, and all of a sudden we feel positive and we feel confident that we can go and reach our dreams. So I put this together 4 years ago, wrote a book called The Aroma Freedom Technique, and introduced it, and it kind of took off really quickly among those who already used oils. Like those people who already understood the power of oils, they didn't need convincing to try oils. And I was just showing them a new way to use them. And people loved it so much, they said, can we get certified in this? And so I ended up creating a whole certification program. And really 4 years ago, very shortly after the book came out, I let go of my psychology practice, successful practice I had for 20 years, because I was helping more people with this process than I was seeing clients one-on-one. So,
Oh, wow.
long story short, that, so for the past 4 years, this has been my mission, is to bring this technique to the world. And over the years, we've evolved it. And now there are actually 6 different aroma freedom techniques instead of the 2 that we started with. And more time than we could cover here today, but we have techniques for past, present, future, for worries, for overwhelm, for most of the things that you would come across as far as stress and emotions go. We have a way to handle it very quickly with the oils now.
Wow, that is incredible. Oh my. So can you go a little bit more into that? Like the aroma freedom technique, I know that's where you got started, and then like explaining what it is and what it can do.
Sure. So, well, I'll give you an example from my own life. The aroma freedom technique, you start out by setting a goal. Now, when you set a goal, something happens in your brain, and 2 things happen in your brain. One is you start getting excited about reaching it, but then if there's anything within your emotions and your thoughts and memories that doesn't think you can reach that goal, they're going to come up to block you from doing that. And so an
Mm.
example from my life, after I'd written the book, which I set myself a very tight time frame to write the book in, and I completed it very quickly, and then I had to edit the book, and I had a friend coming over, was helping me edit the book, and after about the second day of editing, all day long, my brain just shut down and I couldn't think anymore. And so I told my friend, I said, I don't know what to say, but I can't think right now. I'm going to go for a walk. And I thought to myself, well, maybe it's emotional. Maybe there's some emotional reason why. So I took out my oils and I took myself through this process that I had created, which I had done many times. That's how I kind of had perfected it. And when I got into the process, I was led back to this memory of a time from high school when I lost a track race. And um, I realized during this process that my brain had developed this negative thought that says you're not strong enough to finish.
Mm.
I
Oh,
didn't
wow.
realize, I had no idea that I had created that negative thought. But when I was in this sprint to finish editing the book, that negative thought complex, we call it a memory complex, got activated. I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is that I couldn't think. But when this memory came up, I just brought out my oils and I breathed the oils into that memory, which is kind of how we do it in this process.
Mm-hmm.
Did that for about 10 seconds. The memory dissolved. And all of a sudden I thought I can do this. And my brain turned back on. And I went
Wow.
inside and I finished the book. And I tell you this story to show you how we all have, probably thousands of these little tripwires within us, these times in our life. Some of them could have been very traumatic. Some of them could be pretty minor, like losing a track race. But we develop these negative thoughts and they sit there like little landmines that prevent us from going beyond our comfort zone. See, as human beings, we are designed to kind of create this comfort zone that we stay within. As long as we stay within it, we feel okay. The trouble is, a lot of our goals and dreams are on the other side of that comfort zone. And when we want to go do something, like there's like a knee-jerk reaction in our brain that says, don't do that. And that's where all the negative thinking comes in. And we've all heard this concept, the negative thinking and the negative thoughts and the doubts that come in. And so, but what I realized that what we have is this process dissolves those thoughts through kind of the neuroscience behind it. It's called memory reconsolidation, which I didn't realize until about a year after writing the book. A chiropractor contacted me and said, what you're doing is memory reconsolidation. And I said, what's that? He
Oh.
said, well, there's a line of research going back to 2005 or so that shows that when we activate a memory along with the emotional component, which is one of the things we do in this process, the neurons that are holding that memory in place actually unlock. The synapses separate slightly and creates an opening for some new information. And if we
Oh.
get new information, then the brain can actually rewire, the memory rewires in a new way. But if it doesn't get any new information, there's a 5-hour window. It's a very specific time window
Mm-hmm.
that if there's no new information during that 5-hour window, the brain locks back down. So what I realized we're doing is we're activating the neurons. They're open for new information, and then the essential oils, the aromas, are actually providing this new information to the brain. The essential oils are actually providing information to the amygdala that says that you're safe and it's okay. And so your nervous system relaxes. So then this creates this mismatch because you're looking at this traumatic memory, but you're feeling okay. And so your brain says, well, wait a minute, I guess I am okay. So I guess that negative thought isn't true. And I guess I don't need to remember it that way. So the brain literally rewires. And this is where we're actually changing the memories. Sometimes the memories totally dissolve. Sometimes they don't dissolve, but they lose their emotional charge. And sometimes we'll actually get a kind of a new understanding, a new awareness of what really happened there. Because normally when we have a traumatic memory or any negative memory, we remember it from our perspective at that time. So if you're 10 years old and your parents got divorced, you would remember it as a 10-year-old with those feelings would be, which doesn't understand what happens between adult relationships, doesn't understand what happens in the world. So when you're going back and you're processing memories like that, you get a new perspective and you might realize the other person's perspective or how it wasn't really your fault or, things did turn out okay. And so then you can kind of rewire. And this is where we find that consistently people go from feeling hopeless about reaching their dreams to feeling very confident that they can reach them all within about 20 or 30 minutes.
Oh.
So,
Oh. Wow. Yeah, and so many of those memories are connected to like chronic illnesses too, right?
Absolutely. So what happens with when we have a memory that's unresolved, we say that it still has an emotional charge. What that means is that there's a part of us that still feels in danger, because any negative emotion, it activates the nervous system into that sympathetic nervous system, right? Fight or flight, which
Mhm.
restricts blood flow and is not about healing. It's about maintaining kind of rigidity. And so any of those memories are creating these tensions in our body that we're holding without even realizing it, whether it's in our neck or shoulders or our belly or wherever it is, our
Yeah.
head many times, and we're holding this tension unconsciously. And so when we go back and rewire those memories, then the body can let go. And then you get more blood flow and you get more chi flowing into the area. And then you can start really healing. So there's a very close connection between emotional health, emotional wellness, and physical wellness. And this is one of the places where they really intersect.
Oh, sure. I mean, we hear so much about what stress does to the body, and
Hmm.
I mean, when it's stuck in stress, then it's pretty
Yeah.
hard to heal. So, can you explain a little bit more of a little more science behind it? Like maybe has it been used in research or similar things?
Yeah, so we don't have any research specifically on this, but the research that we do have draws from a few areas. One is the memory reconsolidation, which I mentioned. Dr. Bruce Ecker has written some books on this, and really understanding how um, across species, not just in humans, but in rats and in crabs and in mice and you know rodents, all the way across the species, there's this very specific thing that happens, and it's about relearning. And there's something called a prediction error effect, which means that when we let's say, I'll just make up an example. Let's say a person was abused by a man with a beard when they were young, right? Then they have that kind of template in their brain, and they've learned, men with beards are dangerous. Or you see this with dogs sometimes, that will
Yeah.
respond that they were abused by a man with a beard. They see a man with a beard, they assume that there's going to be a bad thing that happens there. And so we're all going into life with predicting things that are going to happen to try to keep ourselves safe. So we may not know why we don't like a certain person or why we're afraid to do a certain thing, but subconsciously we know why that is. So um, we're predicting trouble. And when we can disrupt those predictive circuits in the brain and make it so that when you picture those doing those things or meeting those people, you rewire that so that now you can kind of approach life fresh. So that's one of the big areas, that memory reconsolidation and prediction. Um, we've done some studies just in the first year of my certification program that I teach.
Mhm.
We had everyone, all the students were recording the sessions that they did, and they would record from 0 to 10. When someone set a goal, how possible it felt. 0 is they felt hopeless about it. 10, they felt totally confident. And so I had everybody just putting their session data into this Google form, basically. And I didn't realize that Google was actually collecting this data and could create um, and could spit out this beautiful chart for me. So after a year, I looked at it and I had over 3,000 sessions that had been logged, and we saw this very consistent movement from feeling, hopeless, and then so maybe out of 0 to 10, maybe people were at a 3, then they went to a 5, then a 7, and then a 9. Over 3,000 sessions, which showed us that the technique is reliable and it's consistent over time. So this is the type of thing, we'd love to have partner with a university or something like this, and kind of drill down a little bit more to see. We've seen it work across the board, whether it's depression, anxiety, fears, phobias, um, feeling stuck, those sorts of
Mhm.
things. We've seen it work in the sessions that we do. We don't have any large scale studies up yet, but that's definitely something we'd like to have going.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like there's a lot of promise there.
One other piece I will mention is
Yeah.
our understanding from the science of smell,
Mhm.
what happens there. So
Yeah.
when you have when you smell something, let's say you're holding an oil up, or a flower, really anything that has an odor, but it should be a pleasant odor. And it goes directly to the olfactory nerve, which is, the top of the sinuses. And it only travels 2 synapses, and then it's at the amygdala. And the amygdala is the central part of the brain that is really responsible. It does two main things. One is it regulates the fight or flight. So
Mhm.
it's either flipping the alarm switch and telling us that we're in danger, that we have to either fight or run away. That's one of the things it does. The other thing it does is it processes smell. So it actually does both of those things. So what we're doing is, in a way, we're kind of like hijacking the amygdala. And when the amygdala is triggered by this memory, when you're picturing an upsetting memory, sometime when, you know, a parent yelled at you, or you dropped your cupcake, or it could be anything, and you're feeling that feeling, and we also find where is it in the body, so it's activated. Then when you smell an odor, it's like the amygdala only has so much processing power, and we are all of a sudden, instead of the amygdala busy processing this fear response, now all of a sudden it's processing all of this pleasant aroma. And it's like it can't keep processing the fear, so we can't feel two things at the same time. And the sense of smell is, it's a primal smell, it's a primal sense, because it's connected to our survival. When you think about in nature and in the animal kingdom, the sense of smell is what helps prey avoid predators. You know, they smell the wolf track and they know to run the other way, or the other way around. They smell the rabbit and they know where to go. So it helps animals survive, and it helps animals, you know, find food, find mates, avoid danger. And this is primal across all animal species. Some even single-celled organisms have this kind of primal sense. It's called more like a chemical sense, and it's like this basic sense of, is this thing good for me or bad for me? And that evolved into the sense of smell. And because it's a survival mechanism, or like another example is, if you smell rotten food, let's say you took leftovers out of the fridge and it's been there too long, you smell it, what happens? You feel disgust, and like you literally can't make yourself eat it. So your alarm bell gets triggered, because it should be, because you're smelling some bacteria or something in there that's telling you this could be dangerous for me. And that's going to override your desire to eat the food, because it's going to help you survive. So we're kind of using the fact that smell trumps all the other senses. We're using it to our favor, because we're now saying, okay, pull up a memory of an upsetting time, and we're going to trump that with, it's like a trump card, we're going to trump that with the sense of smell. Your system has to relax. It doesn't have a choice. And when that happens, everything rewires. So that's kind of the neuroscience behind it too.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, there are so many different, you hear about brain rewiring, but this is like putting that on turbocharge or something. Like,
yeah, you literally see it happen before your eyes. You know, a typical session might take about 30 minutes, and people will go from feeling totally hopeless or overwhelmed to they're like singing and dancing and just ready to go, you know, attack their goals and dreams.
Yeah. Wow. So what does that kind of look like? I know, yeah, so you're triggering your feeling in the body. Can you just walk us through what that would look like over 30 minutes?
Sure. So let's say, well, and again, there are 6 different techniques. So there are some that are just a simple, like 1-minute stress relief technique might be to picture a current situation that you feel overwhelmed by. So, you know, we all have them, right? When we think about a situation, whether it's, I'll say, you know, preparing for a summit, or, you know, getting ready to go on a trip, or finishing your taxes, or speaking to your husband, or whatever it is, if you feel some overwhelm, anything like that, you choose the situation, you picture it. It's very important that you picture these things, because that's a key piece of how the brain works, because that when you simulate it in your mind, it pulls everything else up. So you picture the situation and name the feeling. This is another important piece we use in Aroma Freedom. And there's some research on this as well, that when you name feelings, it starts to take the edge off of that feeling itself. It's kind of like when you hear rustling in the bushes, you get nervous. You're like, is that an intruder, or is that a rabbit? I don't know. Once you see that it's a rabbit, you relax.
Yeah.
Or once you see it's an intruder, you at least know what to do. You can at least start running away. But when you don't know what it is, that's actually when it's the most upsetting. So the same is true when you're feeling this overwhelm, this, you know, confusion, or naming the feeling. Your system starts to move into a problem-solving mode. Okay, now at least I've named the feeling. Finding it in the body just makes it more real. And then identifying the negative thought that goes with that. So there's 4 key pieces we're always connecting: the image, the feeling, the body sensation, and the negative thought, because all 4 are always involved in all of these things. And then you smell essential oils and your system relaxes. That's like literally a 1-minute technique. We call it the aroma reset technique. And I have some booklets on my website that describe how to do that very quickly.
All right.
Then we have a process that takes about 10 or 15 minutes called the aroma boost, which is similar to the reset, where you get yourself to kind of calm down in relation to whatever this stressful situation is, and then you actually picture yourself doing the thing and how good you're going to feel when it's done. And then we do a special
Mhm.
affirmation that kind of puts all that together, and then we smell an oil with that, and it energizes the affirmation. And so we call that the boost, because when you do that, you're super excited to go and do that thing that before you were procrastinating about. Because
Yeah.
what we really want is to feel good. And the
Right.
reason we procrastinate is we think, well, I'm going to feel overwhelmed when I do that thing, so or I'm going to feel
Mm-hmm.
bored, so I resist
Yeah.
it. But when we turn it or flip the tables and we say, well, how are you going to feel when it's done? You're like, "Oh, I'm going to feel relieved, I'm going to feel proud." Okay,
I
so let's
love it.
anchor that in. So it's kind of like a little ninja trick to
Yeah.
to kind of propel yourself to do the thing that you've been resisting. Or if there's a specific negative memory that you have, a traumatic incident from childhood or adulthood, or a betrayal or accident or anything, we just zoom right in specifically on that memory, and we identify the feeling and the thought and the body, and we just circle around that memory for several rounds over the course of 20, 30 minutes. And you go
Mm.
from feeling all wound up, you could be feeling terrified, you could be feeling guilty, whatever that past is. And over in that 20, 30-minute process, each time you smell the oils, you start to feel a little better, the feeling shifts. We just track that very closely until when you think about that memory, you're like, yeah, no big deal. And we've seen this over and over. So those are some of the techniques. And then the master one, the aroma freedom technique, is more where you don't know what's blocking you. You just know that you want that goal. You want to finish writing your book by December, or you want to double your business in a year, or you want to have a loving relationship with your husband or your kids. So you set a goal, whatever it is. You don't know how it's going to happen, you just know this is what you want. And then we listen in and say, well, what is that negative voice saying that tells you this can't happen? And sure enough, you're going to hear something, and that's the subconscious mind. It's not unconscious, because if you listen for it, you can hear it. But by listening to that subconscious, and then we identify, well, how you feel when you hear that voice, and where do you feel that in your body? Drift back to a memory of a time when you felt that way before. Now we're accessing the core memory that actually was giving rise to this doubt in the first place. Once we're back at the memory, that's when we're smelling the oils. Memory dissolves, thoughts dissolve. Now you come back and we rate it. Let's say in the beginning, you're a 3 for how possible it feels. Then it might jump to a 6. And so then you do another round, and it might go back to a different memory that you would have never connected with that before. Like when I was writing the book, I had zero connection with this. I hadn't thought of it in 30 years, this memory of this
Yeah.
time from high school. So you'll be surprised by the memories that pull up, because we're not trying to connect consciously to them, we're connecting subconsciously. So you do that few rounds until basically the goal is that when you think about that goal, you're like, I can do it. Like there's nothing in you that says you can't do it. And in fact, that's when I was writing the book, I gave myself 30 days to write the book, because there was a
Wow.
specific time frame. I had been, thinking about it, but I had written some notes, but I hadn't, I didn't totally know what it was
Yeah.
going to be about. But I gave myself that challenge, and I created the process, and I knew the process worked. I was testing it. People loved it. I still hadn't written anything. I was down to 15 days left. And so I did the process on myself. I'm going to finish this book in 15 days. And took myself through it. I don't remember the different memories that came up, but as I was smelling the oils, I remember this thought came through clear as day. Say, oh, 150-page book, that's just 10 pages a day for 15 days. How hard is that? And
Yeah.
there was like no inner resistance to it. So I told my wife, I'm going to the library every day, write my 10 pages. After 4 or 5 days, I could actually see what the book was about. Then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm writing a book about this technique that I just created. Sure enough, by the 15th day, the book was done. So in the last part of it, then you're creating this affirmation. Once you know you can do it, then you create the affirmation, which is really kind of like you've taken away your programming, your subconscious programming that said you couldn't. Let's replace that with some programming that says you can. And so then you're saying your affirmation, and you do it in a power pose, you do it with some oil to really anchor it in. And then you say that affirmation a few times a day until it's really imprinted. So this is part of this rewiring. So we're kind of like dewiring, and then we're rewiring.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different processes we have, but they're all kind of in this direction of gaining freedom, which is why I call it aroma freedom. You're getting free from the negative thoughts, from the doubts. You're getting free from the memories that haunt you, and
Mhm.
you're freeing yourself to pursue what your dreams are. And I've had a number of students who've gone on to write the books that they always wanted to write,
Oh,
or to go have
cool.
the baby they wanted to have, or whatever
Yeah.
the things were,
Mhm.
so it's really about freeing people up to just live their best life.
So with the essential oil component, how do you know which ones to use? Are there certain ones that you recommend or?
Well, we had been using Young Living oils for many years, so those were the ones we were using. There was a specific oil I had called Trauma Life, which is what I was
Okay.
using when I was just working on the traumatic memories. That oil had gone out of stock back when I was doing all this, so
Mm.
I looked at the starter kit, and there were some key oils there. There's frankincense, lavender, and stress away, which has vanilla oil in it. And in my research, I had found scientific research supporting the use of vanilla, frankincense, and lavender, all for calming the brain, and all in slightly different ways. So I
Mm.
said, well, let's combine those. So I actually create a blend. We call it the um, memory release blend, which is frankincense, lavender, stress away, which has vanilla in it, equal
Mhm.
parts. Rub on your hands and smell. And so that's kind of like our main blend we use. There are a lot of oils that could work. These are the ones I teach with because I know they work.
Yeah.
And then some other Young Living oils. There's an oil called Inner Child. There's an oil called Release. I'm not an aromatherapist per se. So I'm not a master blender of oils really, but I'm good at finding out, taking oils that have been created for a purpose, and I test them and see which ones do what I want them to do. And so we just have a small palette of those oils that we use in the process. And it's all explained in the book,
Okay.
that we use those oils. And then for the affirmation part at the end, we're not really trying to dissolve anything. We are more working to enhance a connection. So we're using very uplifting oils. We might use a lemon oil or a citrus oil, or we have one called Transformation that I love, which has some
Mhm.
peppermint in it as well. Um, so those are some of the oils that we use.
Wow, cool. So, and then you also mentioned power poses. I don't know if everyone knows what those are.
Yeah, so this is something that actually my friend who was helping me edit the book at that time, she introduced me to that concept of power poses, which was popularized by Amy Cuddy from Harvard, who discovered that people standing just for 2 minutes in a power pose, which may be like arms over your head in a victory pose, or standing like Wonder Woman, or
Yeah.
um, that basically raises confidence and lowers stress. So we said, well, why not combine the power pose with saying the affirmation? If it's going to enhance your confidence, you want your affirmation to be as confident as possible. And here
Oh,
again,
yeah.
over time, we evolved it even more. We've kind of like found several poses, because sometimes your affirmation is going to be very of like a strong pose, like I'm going to conquer the world. Sometimes it's more like this. It's like a self-nurturing pose, maybe because maybe your affirmation is about taking care of yourself or about
Yeah.
being gentle or something. So
Cool.
we show the client a few different options and let them kind of find one that really fits the energy of that affirmation, and then they say the affirmation with that power pose. And it's all about getting it into the body, because if you don't want it just in your head, you want to be embodying whatever it is that you're doing.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Sending the same message to the body from in all different ways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you tell a little bit more about your book? And I know you have like the certification program. Maybe tell a little bit about that because people might be interested.
Sure. So the book, again, I wrote it in 2016. I did a brief edit of it in 2017. But the first part of the book goes into the sense of smell, which I described a little bit, and the science behind why it's so primal. It goes into a little bit of what happens emotionally when we have painful situations, why we get stuck, how we develop these negative thoughts. And then it goes through the protocol for trauma, why traumatic memories are different than regular memories, how they're stored differently in the brain, and
Oh,
then how we can actually dissolve those memories using this process. And then the whole second half of the book is the 12 steps of this aroma freedom technique, and it describes each step in greater detail, and then gives a little synopsis at the end of how to do the process. And there's a little chart so you can just follow right along. So a lot of people have just bought the book either on Amazon or on my website aromafreedom.com, and taken themselves through the process and experienced profound results. So it can be a self-care tool, or it can be something you can just read the book and do with others. And then people started asking me for certification. In the beginning, I thought, well, why do we need certification? It's a simple technique. What I realized, though, is that although the techniques are simple, people are complicated.
yeah.
And people are coming in with a lot of complications, a lot of misunderstandings about how to do things. And plus people will throw you a curveball sometimes, and maybe they can't find the feeling in their body, or maybe they say a word that's actually a judgment and not a feeling. So certification is about really refining and getting clear on how to work with anybody. So I teach it now as an 8-week online intensive process that it's really designed for people who want to use it professionally. So what I say is that people can learn the technique from the book, do it on themselves, their family, their friends, without being certified. That's fine. But if you want to do it professionally and want to hang a shingle as an aroma freedom practitioner, or if you want to integrate it into, if you're a counselor or therapist, or even a massage therapist, chiropractor, anything professional, and you want to integrate this life coach, then you have to become certified. So that's kind of really where we draw that distinction. So the certification, it's intensive personal growth as well. The first week of it, everyone is doing aroma resets on themselves every day. The next week, they're doing aroma boosts on themselves every day. They're making it so they're kind of living and breathing this process for the personal growth part. And then we're clearing away also any doubts they might have. Can I really do this? Or um, what if I hurt someone? Or what if I don't know what I'm doing? And we clear all that stuff out. All of that is just like the mental garbage people bring in. And by clearing that out and developing that confidence level, then they're able to really start working with more and more people. So by the end of the 8 weeks, people are qualified to do sessions on others, one-on-one or in groups, in person or online, and even start to maybe bring their own special coaching program together that incorporates AFT or aroma freedom into it. And then the only thing they can't do with it is certify other people. They have to send them back to me, and I make sure I have the quality control and the training for that. But it's been a great great opportunity for people.
Oh yeah, and it's great if you can do it online now with,
Yeah,
stay at
I
home.
shifted 4 years ago. I shifted my practice from in person to totally online, and this has been an awful situation for so many people with COVID. And I've only gotten busier, and the people that are able to deliver something online, really, that's what everyone wants to do right now because they have to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what do you do then on a regular basis to fortify your brain?
So, well, I mean, number one is this process, and
Hmm.
because I'm just very attuned to my stress level and being aware of what are the thoughts that are coming into my mind. And if anything's coming in that's stressing me out, I just grab my oils. I don't just smell the oils though. I grab the oils. I set it up in my mind first. So I've identified, I've named the feeling, I found it in my body, I've seen if there's a memory connected, and then I'm breathing into that. By doing that, things just bounce off of me a lot more than they used to. And it doesn't generate that residual stress. So I could be in an intense situation, let's say packing for a move or doing something intense, and there can be kind of an arousal level which is appropriate to what's happening. But
Yeah.
then afterwards, I don't carry it anymore. I let it go. And if I'm having trouble letting it go, I'll use this process. So really the essential oils in this process are a key way of keeping the stress low. The other things, of course, are some of the, obvious ones that everyone talks about. Sleep. I definitely notice a difference for myself. If we're not getting enough sleep or not good sleep, then I'll be easier to trigger, or won't feel as sharp, that sort of thing. Even there are some essential oils that I'll use for clarity. In fact, Young Living has a blend called Clarity that I used a lot
Yeah.
of when I was writing the book.
Okay.
Clarity and brain power, and so just rosemary. There's some oils that are really stimulating to the brain, and my antioxidant supplements that I take as well, because I know that oxidative stress is a big issue, and the brain is not exempt from that. And my omegas, when I remember to take them, and get into a rhythm of taking them, so there's kind of some of those basic things. But mostly for me, since I really know that my calling here is about helping people with emotions, I'm just making sure I'm staying emotionally clear as much as possible, and I'm sure it's having a great effect.
Yeah, great. Wow. That was amazing. I'm so happy to learn about this process and really to hear all the science behind it as well. So thank you so much for being a part of this.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for putting all this together. And, I hope that if someone watches this and tries some of these processes out and gets some help, then it's been well worth it.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, thanks again and take care.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.